In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the front struts on this Dodge Dart. Let's get into it. We're going to remove the wheel. Use a 19mm socket. Take the lug bolts out. Before you take the last one off, I'm just going to hold the wheel from falling. Take that one off, grab the wheel, and slide it off. We're going to take the caliper and the bracket off together. I'm using a E14 socket. Take these two bolts out. Slide the caliper off. I'm going to use a caliper hanger. I'm going to attach that over on this bracket. We'll just pull this brake hose out of the bracket for the strut. Slide that out. And that's just going to hang to the side. Go around the back side if you want. That's good. It's out of the way. The wheel speed sensor wire, slide that out of the bracket. Using a 18mm wrench on the back side of the link and a 15mm socket, take this nut off. Take that off. Slide the link out. Set that aside. Using a 10mm socket, take this bolt out for the wheel speed sensor. And grab the wheel speed sensor, just twist it back and forth. Just gonna use some pliers. Just grab the sensor, just twist it back and forth, and set it aside. I'm gonna remove the rotor from the hub just because it's gonna make the whole knuckle assembly lighter, using a 5mm hex. And just take this screw out. Grab the rotor, slide it off. Where the nut is, it's peened over on both sides. We're just gonna use a punch, just get underneath there. We gotta take that nut off. Try to bend it up a little bit. Underneath as well. Using a 36mm socket, take this nut off. Just make sure the axle is loose from the hub. If not, you want to take a punch and just give it a tap, try to loosen that up. And remove the cotter pin, just use some side cutters. Slide that out. Using a 18mm socket, take the nut off. Now we're going to separate the tie rod from the knuckle. I'm just going to use a puller. There's different front end tools you could use to separate these. Go. Separate that. We're going to take this nut and bolt out. I'm going to use an E14 socket on the bolt, and then a 16mm socket for the nut. Take that out. You should be able to get the bolt out. just so I don't damage the bolt. I'm just going to put the nut on temporarily. Just give it a tap with a hammer. Just going to use a punch it the rest of the way out. Now we're going to pry the lower control arm down. They make a special tool that's like a hook that you can hook on and then use a pry bar, pull it down. If you don't have one of those, you can use an exhaust clamp. Slide this on. You don't have to tighten it, just put the nuts on. Slide the pry bar through. And pry down the control arm. Now right here, there's a little gap. You can take a pry bar, just get in between there. You just want to pry that apart a little bit. You can take a hammer, just give it a couple taps. Just pry that, that's good. And just pry this down and it slides out, just like that. You can slide the axle out, set that aside. Now I'm just gonna support the strut underneath. You could use a floor jack or just hold it. And then with a straight blade screwdriver, we're gonna take this clip off, just pry this off just like this. It's probably gonna break, it's just plastic. There you go, slide that out. And then the strut comes out with the knuckle. There we go. Now we're gonna take this bolt out, use an E14 socket on the bolt side and an 18mm on the nut. Take that out. Yeah, we'll separate this. I'm just going to use a rubber mallet. And just tap it out. You can try to spread this a little bit with a pry bar. If it's in there a little bit tight. There we go, separate the strut. Now we'll put these together. If you have to, you can use a pry bar and spread that apart a little bit. Line that up, make sure it's lined up with that piece right there. And just give it a tap. Oops. Tap it on. There we go. Sure it's going on straight. That's good. Let's pry this open. Take the bolt, slide the bolt in, get the nut, get that started. Tighten that down. Now we're going to torque this nut to 81 foot-pounds. It's good. Now slide this up in place. And get the axle lined up. And using a pry bar, just going to pry down on the lower control arm, get that lined up. Put the axle in, we'll get the nut started right there. That's up there, that's good. Can let go of that a little bit. And pushing this up and then prying lower control arm down. That's right there. All right, that's lined up. Give it a couple taps. While I was prying down with the pry bar, with the exhaust clamp down below for the lower control arm, I had another pry bar up top. That pry bar was right through here. And there's a hole in the body of the vehicle, and that's just holding the spring up. It would be ideal to have an assistant helping you pry one down while you're prying the other one up, and then line that lower ball joint up. Take this exhaust clamp off. Just hammer this up. Put the bolt through, get the nut on the back side. Tighten this down. And we're going to torque this lower nut and bolt to 48 foot-pounds. Now up top, I'm just going to use a small pry bar, just pry this to the side a little. Then I put a floor jack underneath the ball joint and just push it up. You can get these clips in, get that lined up, get the other one lined up, and just try to lock them down. Just using some large pliers. Just squeeze them together. There we go. Those are all the way on. Now I can lower the floor jack. Line this up and put the tie rod in. Get the nut on. Snug that down. Now torque the nut to 22 foot-pounds, and then an additional 90 degrees. If you don't have a torque angle meter, do the best you can. All right, that's good. And you want to find the hole, take a new cotter pin, go through the hole. If it doesn't line up, you just tighten it up a little bit more till the hole lines up. That's good. Use some side cutters, bend it over, and trim the excess. Take the wheel speed sensor, slide that through. Take the bolt, get that started. And tighten that down. Snug. Now we're going to tighten the nut down, the axle nut. Take two of the lug bolts, get those started. Take a pry bar. It's going to prevent this from spinning. Then we're going to torque this to 148 foot-pounds. Take the lug bolts out. Taking a punch, we're just going to peen over the sides of the nut so it doesn't loosen up. Spin it around. Do the same on this side. It's good. Take the rotor, line that up. Right there. Take the screw, get that started. Snug that down, not too tight. Now take the caliper off the hook, slide it over the rotor, get the bolt started. Make sure the hose is not twisted. Torque these bolts to 129 foot-pounds. Slide the brake hose into the bracket, just like that. Take the ABS wire, slide that into the bracket. And the link, get the link lined up. Might need a pry bar to pry down the sway bar. There we go, that's lined up. Put the nut on. Use the wrench to prevent the stud from spinning. Snug that down. Now torque the nut to 48 foot-pounds. That's good. Now put the wheel on. Line it up. Take the lug bolts, get those started. Get the other one started. Snug those down. Now I'm going to torque the lug bolts to 92 foot-pounds in a cross pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. Just go around again, double check. After finishing this installation, it's important to have an alignment done on your vehicle.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.